Hello there. I am Kat Hobson. I am the host of Paranormal Experience, and I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Every so often, all the stars align, and you get to have really good guests who are really good friends, and it all works out. And everybody is in like so many different, they're in the same time zone. I am like into their afternoon, but I'm so excited to have them here. It is Ryan O'Neill and Greg Stewart, who are Scottish Paranormal, along with all of their co-investigators. They have the subscriber group that they do events with. They're so good. I know that you've probably seen them on Haunted Scotland. Gregor is also known as the Haunted Explorer. He does tours through haunted locations in Scotland. I have done his St. Andrews tour because he loves us and took us. And I just can't tell you enough about how professional these guys are, what great humans, and what really terrific paranormal investigators they are. They took us to Balgony Castle every time I've been to Balgony Castle, and it's a brilliant place. And I know y'all have heard me talk about it. Let's bring them and their wonderful accents in to talk about it. So, hello, Ryan. Hello, Greg.
Hello.
Hello.
Should I say hiya as opposed? So, I'm so glad you're here.
It's nice to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being had. You know, I really enjoy y'all so much. I really feel like it's a blessing to be able to interact with y'all the way I have. And of course, that's all thanks to Rick McCollum connecting us with each other. I'm looking forward to being back in September. And I am
looking forward to being back.
I'm a little worried about freezing to death. Is it cold there in September?
It can vary. It's normally just going into autumn around about then, so it can be fairly warm.
Okay. So light jumpers, because like my autumn, it's still 80 something degrees Fahrenheit.
In Scotland, you never know. I mean, you can have the joke that you can have 4 seasons one day, and you can have that any time of the year. But yeah, I mean, it's you'll need what we call the wee jacket, not the big jacket.
Well, that's good enough. You know, I'm really excited because I've only been there at the beginning of summer. And so to be able to see your fall is so special to me. I think because it's such a beautiful country. And y'all are so blessed to be there.
Yeah, it's a nice time of year.
Well, one of the things that I definitely want to talk, Ryan, about your television experience, and Greg, yours too, because you've been featured there also. But what I'm really into that I think is so cool and unusual about your group is the involvement of your subscribers. That's such an original idea. How many do you have?
How many subscribers do we have just now?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Around about 100, 150, I'd say. We have the subscribers club, but we also have badge supporters who come in there too. They don't usually come along to a lot of the events, but they're online and they support us through the Haunted Scotland page. But the actual premium club is really special. These are people who have really went deeper than just watching TV shows or, following our content online. They've obviously thought to themselves, we could go deeper and start exploring what is going on. And they're coming along really well. So they join us on events, they use equipment, they actually help with the research as well. So they could be, whether they're intuitive, whether they like equipment, whether they are more skeptical, they all bring that together to help us gather the data.
Well, you need all of those
about myself and Greg.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again?
I said that you really need all of those aspects when you have, especially large-scale investigations. It helps to have people that are familiar with equipment who can help do that.
I think one of the main things with paranormal research and investigation is trying not to remove any aspect. I know there is people who maybe don't like intuitives or psychics or mediums, and I know sometimes you maybe have a more spiritual group who are not so fussy about a DR60 or a EDI plus. But I feel that that's many pieces of a jigsaw. And I think you all bring your piece to the table and it builds that bigger picture of what's going on. So if you say, I don't believe on psychics or in mediums, so I don't use them, I feel you take away a large aspect of who we are as humans and what we can explore from that angle. So I like to look at it as be as impartial as possible, sit in the middle, gather as much data, information, and then build your picture from there. So you need all those pieces and you need all these people in the paranormal community as well. Just because one team may be psychics and mediums and another team may have all the equipment, you need that, but you need it as part of a bigger picture. So it's not about, discount this, discount that. I think you need to come together to put that on the table, because I think it will take everyone coming together to build the picture of what is actually going on. And that's why it's great having the subscriber club, because like you said, that there's many different people in there. We have people who are psychic, who are mediumistic, who are spiritual. These are all different aspects that they can bring to the table. But you also do have people who just like doing audio work or just like looking at graphs of data. And they've maybe had an experience and they're trying to understand what's going on. And they'll tell you, they'll maybe say they're psychic as a brick. They haven't opened up that ability within because they don't believe it. But I mean, Greg will tell you that as well. He's changed his mind on a lot of things because of the process we've been through.
Yeah. Well, Greg, do you not do psychic things, or?
No, I mean, my belief system has changed massively. When I first started, I would describe myself as an open-minded skeptic, and I would say more skeptic than believer. But over the years, so much has happened. I just can't explain it. So my mind's far more open than it ever was. When I used to say I was an open-minded skeptic, I wasn't particularly open, although I told myself I was. The reality is that I wasn't, and I know that now, and I can acknowledge that. Things have changed. But just feeding on from what Ryan was saying about the subscribers group, when we first established it, we were looking at creating opportunities for people that we never had ourselves. We were in a lucky position that we could offer people opportunities, to explore their interest, explore any gift. So as Ryan saying, we've got people that are interested in the tech side, we've got people interested in the psychic side. So because we've got different people within the team itself, they can explore whichever area they are interested in as a subscriber. And it's massively brought them on. We now, when we do events, we do what we call You Are the Investigator, where a group of 10 of them come together and they actually run their own investigation completely separate from us, and then feed the data back to us. So, it's working really well.
Well, that's pretty cool, because not like here, people are very proprietorial about their groups. They're very much so about, they have their locations, and I have found that people are not as open as y'all. Of course, also Americans in general, yeah, as you say, Greg, the history is the mystery. And it's really true. When I walk into a location there, I feel a lot more than I do in some of ours. Our history is a lot newer than yours, you know, forever with you and 250 something years here. But there's a lot of Native American stuff here. I mean, there've always been people here, but the structures such as you have are newer. And it's really cool to walk into an historic building here, and it's somebody that compared to y'all would be my peer, right? It's really kind of interesting. But when I'm there, you know, Bannockburn was a brilliant location. That they picked on Lori so bad. But it was really fun because going to Balgony, even the first time, I wasn't getting what the other people in the room with me were getting up in the dining hall area, but there was somebody that nobody else was talking to. And I was just like, well, half of these people are psychics. Why aren't they talking to this person? And I guess that person didn't know I could see or something, because they were just kind of like focused over here where everybody's like, oh, look, there's so much energy. And, you know, and I just was like, back there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. First, the where there's history, there's mystery. I've got to acknowledge that's Ryan's catchphrase, not mine.
Oh, sorry.
But we do share it. We do
Ryan.
share it because it's such a good phrase. We do use it quite a lot. But certainly that instant at Balgony, what my personal thoughts would be is whoever that spirit was maybe chose to only make themselves known to you. And maybe they didn't want to communicate with others in the room, or specifically there's something that there's a reason they only wanted to speak with yourself. So it may be that the others were unaware that they were there because that spirit just wanted to communicate with you.
Does that happen often?
Yeah, I mean, we use two mediums when we're out. We use Lee, who you've spoken to, and Louise, who you're familiar with as well. And they always get different. It's quite rare they get the same spirit energy when we're on location. They pick up on different energies. So it does seem to be that certain spirits make themselves known to different people for whatever reason.
I think that's interesting because I've always felt like I was made. That's why I've doubted my abilities on occasion, because I would be getting nothing and everybody else around me is picking someone up. And I'm just like, guess I'm not playing tonight, you know. But that makes sense because we have a location here in my town called Sloss Furnaces, and we have activity that I pick up on that other people that I've been with didn't. But there's a lot that they're grabbing that won't play with me at all. It's really an interesting thing, right? Because I can't imagine, because you brought up Lee, I can't imagine anyone who's a spirit not interacting with Lee. Because he is so...
Yeah, I mean, it can vary.
Strong.
A lot of the times we find if it's a female spirit or a child spirit, they prefer to interact with a female medium. It may be that in their life that, you know, the male way back then was seen as the dominant figure. so they're less likely to communicate through a male than they are to a fellow female.
Well, that's logical. You know, when in that instance that I was referring to, the first trip, everybody that was talking to this young girl, were like, you go, girl, you don't have to take that from him. He doesn't own you. And I'm like, kind of, he does. Quit telling her that, because you're going to get her in trouble. She cannot, it's a different culture and it's a different period. And they were like, you go, girl. And I'm like, no, you can't tell her that.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing it's something we try to do, is put yourself in that time, where they lived. It may be very different now, but even, if we do work with the witch trials, is probably the key one.
Yes.
For us looking at the witch trials now, it's you wonder how could people believe this? How could people do this to fellow human beings? But it was the belief. You've got the king and you've got the church, both telling you this is real. This is why your babies are dying. This is why your crops are failing. This is why your ships are sinking. It's nothing to do with natural disasters. It's witches. So people believed it. So you can go in and berate them. Tell them how wrong they were and everything, and get nothing. If you go in and more on that level where this is real, you tend to get more communication.
Yes. And it's so bizarre, because when I went to Kulrus, which one of the most haunting places I've been, but also one of the most beautiful places I've been. The village going up. It's the first place I found out for absolute certain that the unicorn is your national animal. We'll talk about that later too, because holy cow. But that's the first place that I saw. I saw it at St. Giles also, but I didn't think it was real because it had a cone on his head. But then when I saw it in Kulrus, the statue with the unicorn, I'm like, this may be real, And then I went up to that abbey, which that graveyard is so active, and I didn't expect that. Everywhere there is so active. But inside the abbey, which I expected to have more, it was so peaceful. And I found that when I went into every side of that nature. Outside, you're going to get whatever. Inside, it felt more like sanctuary. Like, we're not bringing this here. Do y'all find that to be true?
Yeah, again,
in a lot of places,
churches, abbeys, things like that are generally a place of peace. They're not a place, and people go to graveyards and churches thinking they're going to be haunted because there's people buried there. But unless there's something happened to make the place haunted, there'd be no reason for it to have any spirit activity there.
Well, I felt like outside, as I was walking away from the abbey, in the back corner, when I turned around to look back, I saw someone, and they may have just been strolling. I don't know what you do when you're dead, but it's an interesting concept that you're still going to be, living your best life, as it were, if you haven't been able to move on in a way. Really, you can't throw a stick and not hit a haunted location in Scotland. Pretty much. Do y'all find that? Do you feel like that's true?
Yeah. I'm going to suggest Ryan comes in just now, because he's got a good theory about things like religious institutes,
okay,
monks, things like that, because we get a lot of that paranormal. So I'll let him explain it, because he can explain it a lot better than me, because it's his theory, and it makes a lot of sense.
Sorry, we're in the same office, so we're being careful here with our microphones, so that's why we're jumping back and forward. Yes, on the religious thing, a lot of the reports that we've got are things like monks, priests, nuns, going back to a certain time frame, usually around the times of the witch trials and coming forward. And one of the things we looked at was why do we get so much of these? Why is it always the monk seen here, or the priest seen there, or the nun, seen in St. Andrews, for example? And the only thing that we could, and then all the things like help me coming through the audio, help me. We've heard things like witch get said coming through. So we looked at that and we're like, what could it be that's causing this? Then the thought come over, if you read scripture and you stayed in that time frame, and this was basically taught to you over and over again, you had to go to church on the Sunday, you went to a school where it would probably be highly religious, and you were taught these things, and you were also taught that you had to behave in a certain way. If you did not behave in a certain way, you would not make it by the pearly gates, you would not get into, God would come down on you and you would do this, that, and the next thing. So when you die, when you pass over and you lose your consciousness switches, basically. 1 minute you're in the physical, the next minute you're transitioning, and you've been through a whole lifetime of being taught that this is the way it is, this is what happens. You will then be met at the pearly gates, and if you've been good enough, you'll be granted your passage into heaven. But when you move your consciousness and you see no gates, and there's no St. Peter standing there, and you're like, where am I? Have I been rejected? Help me. How do I move on? Is this hell? Am I stuck? How do I move on?
Yes.
Or one more than that, if you served your whole life as a nun or a priest or a monk, and you say, I must have done it wrong because I'm still here. I don't see, where's God? Where's Jesus? Where is all these things that I was taught through scripture? And maybe scared to move on, maybe scared to go any further, so they're earthbound. And is this why we see a higher amount of souls, basically, who are walking in these areas, who are religious, and even people who probably come through that teaching back in the day? And is this why they're asking for help? Because they think, help, I want to move on. And we get a lot of that through audio, through electric EVPs, and through ITC research. And we've heard the helps and help me and calling us a witch. I mean, we're talking to the dead. We're using these devices that they don't know what that is. And we think it could be a fear-based consciousness that's stuck. And this is why we see a higher amount of these reports going on. And we're talking not just Scotland, I mean England and Ireland, and probably in America as well. So this is what we think. I mean, obviously we don't know for 100% certainty, but we're going on the position that this could be what's happening.
Well, it's logical, because here, people here talk about having a relationship with Christ and other things too, but it's very fear-based because, one of the this was actually a billboard that said, heaven or hell, where are you going? Well, what if the methodologies to get there aren't what the people that are making money from scaring you are selling? And I just think that there's so many, like you said, religious people that dedicated their lives to their faith, who are wandering around trying to find what they expected. There's a lot of that there, right? I mean, Even I know that just from my experiences there. That's very logical.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, going back to Kuros, we've got a few subscribers in there, and two at least come from Kuros, and they grew up in Kuros as well. And I remember she said to us, when we were children, we didn't know what was a ghost, a ghostly monk, and what was a real person. Such was the amount of spirits walking around the area. That blows my mind. To think as a child, you're walking around and you see this monk walking along the cobble path or roadway of Kuros, and it's so. I mean, a lot of people think that spirit will just be this translucent, airy-fairy type thing, and it can be, or it could be invisible,
but they're not.
And we've all heard this.
Yeah,
it could be somebody as solid as us in looking that could be there, and you turn away and you come back and they're gone. And we've all heard the stories of people being saved with what they call angels. This person turned up, they were as solid as us. You can actually hold their hand, and they saved us.
Yeah, they can actually move things.
Yeah, it can actually do things, and then they just disappeared. So we don't know what the capabilities inside this reality is. Yes, we'll get the translucent stuff. And yes, we'll get the invisible poltergeist type stuff happening, but you will also get spirits that are as solid as we are, and you will not be able to tell the difference until they're there, and then they're gone in an instant. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but there is so many reports, and not everyone could be wrong in this.
Well, I had one of those. I had been on an investigation, and there was an item that the family had thrown away several times, and they finally put it in the bin and watched the garbage truck drive away with it. When we went to do an investigation at their home, one of the women had said, "Where's that egg?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she was like, "No, there was an egg." So, well, I don't see one. So, I couldn't find it. She had seen it. So we're leaving, and I drove myself, so I'm the only one still there. And the newest person, it was my first time with this team. And the dad came running out of the house with a Nerf ball that was still in plastic. I mean, little bitty Nerf ball, which was her egg. And he was like, "Why would you bring this?" And I'm like, "Not your girl." I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, "I saw this drive away from my house. You can't leave this here. You're taking this home with you," and threw it in my car. And I was like, I don't even know what's happening here. So I got down the road and I'm calling, right? Trying to get some, because they all rode together. Because I lived on the other side of town. And I'm trying to get someone on the phone. Finally got through. And one of the guys, in fact, I just had the guy on last week. And Blaine said, "You're going to have to bind that spirit to that ball and throw it in water." Hey, I don't litter. So I'm like, I can't do that. But when I did it, as I was leaving, the area I was in did not have anyone there because I'm very paranoid about littering. I'm not going to do it. And I'm certainly going to make sure nobody sees me do it if I have to, because there's no reason to do that other than a spirit. So I threw it out, did the binding spell, threw it out, started to leave. And there's this guy walking in the middle of the road coming toward me. And he was not dressed appropriately for the weather. His head was down. He had a cap, and he was in a big flannel shirt. It was summer. And I'm just like, holy cow. Nope. Just nope. And so I spun around and, I had to pull a U-turn and go back by him. And when I pulled my U-turn, he wasn't there. And I'm like, well, obviously the binding didn't take so he's on his way back to wherever. But that was freaky. So yeah, they do still show up, and that's the only time that I have known for an absolute fact that what seemed to be a complete real person couldn't possibly be. And it's a trip. I was panicked. So, have y'all actually seen somebody that looked like you could just deck them and then they just disappeared?
I've not seen anything as solid as that myself, but I equally come back to what Ryan was saying earlier. I don't know, because when I grew up in St Andrews, which is deemed one of the most haunted towns in Scotland as well, a lot of people may have been spirit. I don't know. People we interact with and see every day could potentially be spirit. None of us actually know 100% if everybody we see day in, day out is actually a living person or not. And I know it's a theory that a lot of people will laugh at and think it's a lot of rubbish, but when you think about it, we don't actually know if everybody that we see is a real person.
Well, I don't think it's funny anymore. I mean, I think it's a strong possibility. Because I became a believer really fast.
Yeah, it certainly happens. I mean, on a seeing something myself. I mean, it was more a shadow figure, I would say, and this wasn't part of an investigation, and this was in my house. This was years ago, and I remember it because I'd went to the kitchen area to prepare foods, and the kids were younger at the time, and I'd said to them to go play in their rooms and not be in the living room while we were cooking. And my kitchen was down the stairs. You could see up a set of stairs. You could see the living room door and the hallway up there. And I remember it just from the corner of my eye, I turned, I seen movement. I turned and I seen the shadow of a child skipping into the living room. So I thought it was one of mine. I was like, so I walked up those stairs and into the living room. I said you were to, walked into the living room, no one there. And you know that feeling you get, with everything goes up, like the hairs. Well, I don't have much hair, but yes, whatever's there goes up, and you could feel that something's not right. That electrical, staticky feeling in the air. I got that, and I got, whoa. I mean, you don't want that to happen in your house. Now, I don't remember many stories in the house, but certainly my son, as he got older, he said, "Oh, I never ever told you. I used to go to sleep at night, and sometimes I would wake up and see a little boy at the bottom of the bed." And I was like, wow, you're joking. Because I remembered what I seen. And I said, what did you do? He says, oh, I used to just pull the covers over my head and go back to sleep. Kids are more prone to seeing things anyway. So probably you could see things that we're conditioned out of being able to see as soon as we go through schooling. And we get pulled into that left brain. So probably there are a little, and some people don't get conditioned. They manage to get through the whole schooling process without having their right brain shut down too much. So there's probably an element of that. I think when people like myself and Greg and you and all these investigators, we start tapping into investigations and doing this, I think we start opening ourselves up a little bit more when we do that, regardless of whether you're a techie or whether you are, more into the spiritual side and using your intuition. I think we all start tapping into that gut feeling and that intuition, and we start removing some of those filters a little bit, where we could see these physical beings being there, consciousness. Everything's consciousness, so units of consciousness being there, and I think that's what opens us up to seeing more than maybe the general public will see. Some general public get little nudges and woken up with some stuff when they come seeking and they take part. And I think if you ask most paranormal investigators, researchers, or hobbyists, they will always say to you that there was something that happened that made them go deeper into this and try and find out if other people had the same or what was going on. Whether you be skeptic and you didn't believe and something formed in front of you or something happened, or whether you've always just had out-of-body experiences from your little to, and you're popping out your body and you were doing this, and then you could see stuff that others couldn't see, and you wanted to understand that you weren't going crazy, that there's something bigger going on. So you've got that as well, but you're obviously open. You could see physical things going on. Greg has opened up massively over the last 20 years that, he's been doing this, coming from a really skeptical point of view. And I've had experiences since I was younger, so I knew something was going on, but I also went back there and went more skeptical. Instances I didn't believe much of the IPC stuff didn't work. And you do listen to people and you let people get into your head and you're like, it doesn't work until you get things that will present itself to you. And that's what happened to me. And then you understand that, you should just be open to everything. I think Greg was probably a little bit the same with some of the ITC stuff.
Where are you, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, when I was very skeptical about the ITC stuff, mainly because the way my mind operates, I need to understand how something operates. So if somebody presents me a phone app, and says spirits can speak through this, I need to know how. Because none of us know 100% how to communicate with spirits. So how can you program something to speak to something you don't know how to speak to? So when phone apps first started coming out, I was very much, it's just radio waves, phone waves, things, picking up phone signal, things like that. And I asked numerous people, it was actually Ryan, and full credit to him, that was able to explain, it was Echovox at the time, how it actually works. Taking these little bits of bit sound and puts them out into the atmosphere. The spirit can really take these bit sounds and turn them back into words and speak back to us using just these little snippets of sound. And it started clicking, it started making sense. We then had our own app built, which Ryan did the audio himself for. So we know 100% there's no words in that. We actually put it out there that if anybody wants to take the time, the audio files are there. We'll go and listen to them.
I use it.
Because it's not only a challenge to see if you can find words, but it's, if there is a word in there that we've missed, we want to know, because we don't want to be putting out false positives saying, we're getting this word all the time, and actually find out that it's actually there. So, yes, it's a challenge, if you like, that, we've proven that there's no words in here that we're aware of, but on the off chance, that 99.9% confidence that we've got, but that tiny little bit of maybe if somebody can find the word, please let us know, because we don't want to be presenting this as evidence unless we can stand by it and say, we don't know, we can't explain how this works. But I think that's a huge area. And this is, again, going back to our subscribers group, where, we put people in a position where they can test these things themselves. Take the DR60, for example. We're fortunate enough to have a couple of them now. So people read things about the DR60, it's this, it's that, you're rubbing your finger on the microphone, things like that. So we say to people, here, take the DR60, try it yourself. And they get results. So they know, if they still start saying, it's just people rubbing their finger, well, you were doing that, not me. You had the device, you tried it, you recorded. So rather than read and go by what other people think, we always try to encourage people, try it, find out for yourself. Don't be discouraged. Not everything works for everybody. There's devices that are out there that I'm quite skeptical about, and I think they don't work for me anyway. But I would never be in a position where I'll say, something, the DR60, for example, I would never say, it's rubbish. Because what happens, even if I didn't believe in the DR60 and I stated publicly it's rubbish, and then somebody like Ryan comes along and gets that 100% conclusive piece of evidence which science accepts on the DR60, how daft do I then look? just because you don't believe it or you can't get results on it, don't dismiss it. Just, it's not for you. Use something else. Use what works for you. But accept that all these devices out there, they work to their own level.
Yeah, a lot of that
depends on the user themselves.
I'll give you one on this. One that's really it was really funny. The EchoVox. So when the EchoVox was out and I seen it was there, I was wondering, is this just a gimmick? And I read a lot of the Google reviews, Google Play Store reviews, and I noticed 2 or 3 international researchers that I know that are really passionate and authenticity, and they gave it a good reviews. So I went, how, I thought they wouldn't use a device like this. So I said, it was a turning point for me. I said, the only way in this life that I'm ever going to know what works and doesn't is if I do it. Forget the noise, just do it for yourself, and either it'll work or it won't work, but give it a good test. Don't just get it and try it once and then say, oh, it doesn't work. Really give it a good test. I was lucky though, because on my first time of using the EchoVox, I went to Macduff's Castle in East Reims, and I said, it was an afterthought. I was like, oh yeah, I've got the app. I'll throw it on for 5 minutes. And I put it on and I was asking questions. And when I was asking one of the questions, I heard a female Glaswegian accent saying Glasgow. And I went, Glasgow. And I was pretty taken aback. Now, there was another capture next to it. I didn't hear it live at the time, but I had recorded it. And it said, scratch the Scot, in a Scottish male voice. Anyway, I took it back and I listened again just to make sure. Took it into the software. And I said, that is a Glaswegian female. And then it's got this other capture. So I got in touch with the guy who made it across in America. And I said to him privately, I said, what did you use to make that? Did you use Scottish audio fragments and radio? No. He says, I used an audiobook. He reversed it. He sliced it. And it was the phonemes that were in there. And I told him what I had. So that's the first part of why I used it. And I went, okay, that's interesting. I'll keep using it though, and I will see what happens. I was then starting to get like slang dialect, like things like dafty, the thing that a Scottish person would say to the other person if they were stupid, you're a dafty. I would get all these kind of things coming through, which I knew wasn't in the normal words of across America. And I went, this is getting really interesting. So I did this for 2 or 3 years, building up more and more audio and trying to really understand what was going on. And then one of my friends, I'm not going to name him, but one of my friends who's a paranormal investigator from one of the countries, got in touch with me. I think actually maybe said it on a post on Facebook, and he said, why are you using that? That doesn't work, right? So I said, oh, that's so interesting. I've been doing this for 2 or 3 years and I've got so much. Could you show me the parts that didn't work for you? He went, no, I've never used it. I mean, oh, it doesn't work and you've never used it. So how did you come to the conclusion that it doesn't work if you've not used it? Well, I don't need to use it because I know it doesn't work. And I was like, no, so how do you know that it doesn't work if you've not used it? Well, it makes sense. Obviously, it's not going to work because it's just a gimmick. I said, but you've not used it. So you're in no position to say whether that works or not. And he was like, yeah, come on my radio show and we could talk about it, and I've got somebody who's skeptical and you could debate. I don't need to debate. I'm not here to prove that works, doesn't work or to argue its case, because I don't own the app and it's nothing to do with me. I'm just looking for results. And also at the same time, those results will be put out and people make their own mind up. I'm not even telling people to believe it. That's what we got. Right. Did it work? Did it not? You make your own mind up. But I know what I've got and I know my own thoughts and feelings on it. Then I come forward to what Greg was talking about, DR60. Now, even after I went on Spook Scotland, I'm very much aware that there was a couple of grumblings here and there about any investigator that uses a DR60 shouldn't be taken seriously. Really? Because I've used the DR60.
That's a great tool.
I put it through so much testing. Now, I could see what some people will maybe put out as an article and they'll say, the DR60 doesn't work, it's picking up stray radio waves. Okay. Faraday box, put the DR60 in, ask questions, listen back, still got words on it. Okay, so we've cut out the radio signals, we're still getting it. The next one is, it's just the internal workings of the recorder. Okay, we sat in here, but we've done multiple tries at it. Some of them had nothing. Some of them did have things, but never ever sounded the same. So you'd think if it was internal workings that you'd get the similar word each and every time you've done it. So it's not the internal workings. Next, we went into Glenfarg Railway Tunnel. We took the France box, which is a broken radio designed to pick up radio signals to a degree. And we took the DR60. We got nothing but static through the France box, but we got captures through a device that's not made to pick up stray radio waves. So this device, the France box, gets nothing. DR60 gets something. How does that work? So we're still getting things. So we went through a process of trying these different things. And then I go back to what I said before is some of the people who are writing articles, they're maybe more skeptical, they don't like the device, don't actually have one. They've never used it. And if they have maybe used it once or twice on an event, they've never used it for an extensive period of time to gather some data to build a working hypothesis. Show me that it doesn't work. What is your data? Because you're asking me for data to prove my point of view of what I have. Show me what you've got. You can't. Why? Because you don't have one. You've not used it. That's unfair. That's not science. You're beating a drum of what is scientific and what's not. That's not science. Because you're coming from a belief system that something doesn't work. So that is a belief system. You think you don't have a belief system that people have to prove to you. That's a belief system. You do not believe you're at the bunker. Where you should come in impartial and use the device and say, right, I'm going to give it a fair crack of the whip. Let's see what we've got. If it works, great. If it doesn't, great. I could go and tell everyone it doesn't work. But they've not done that. They've heard somebody else talk about it, says, oh, that makes sense. Now I'm going to write about it. And then this continues and continues and continues. And then some will come forward and say, I can't afford one, so I'm going to say it's rubbish. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's unfair because there's so many people who are getting results.
I believe in those because the first time we were there, we were at Araneth Castle, and we had a psychic with us that was doing readings or just doing a group thing. And I just happened to go down there. And I had two relatives come through to him, and he described them physically before I would say, that's mine, And so when we finished there, Mikey, my friend Mikey Thompson, has one. And I'm looking for validation, right? Because I don't know this psychic from Adam, and he's hitting everything down to my dad's tweed jacket with the patches, to my nephew's hair, to everything. And so I go flying back to the hotel part and found Mikey and said, I need to use that. Can you help me? Because I don't hear it that well because I haven't been using it. And they both came through on that. And I mean, I was excited, but sad because it was my dad's voice. And it was a definitive voice, and it was my dad's voice. And this is the guy who, when he was talking to people as he was laying in bed passing, and I went to him later, I was like, were you talking to your dad? And he sat up in bed and he looked at me and said, sweetheart, my dad's dead. I was like, well, you're talking to somebody. Who are you talking to? So he did not have any interest at all. So when this guy's telling me that's my dad, I'm like, we're going to find out, And Mikey was just like, are you okay? And I'm like, I am okay. So I became a firm believer in that then. And you and I have talked about that device. And so if I ever hit the lottery or don't have anything else to spend my money on, I'm buying one, because I do think that can provide what I considered in my life the Holy Grail. It was my dad. it was my dad's voice.
You know, and the simple thing about the DR60 is it was one of the first digital recorders that was made, and it doesn't have all this sound cancellation, you know, parts inside, you know, all the things that we have in really good crystal clear devices these days. And my theory on this is because it's open completely and doesn't have any of these new features coming forward that were created, it can somehow pick up wherever they're communicating from, wherever that signal's coming in from, however they're able to do it. It's just raw and it's open, and it's able to pick, just like some of the old, before it was digital, would pick up lots of great stuff, and there've been lots of ITC. And that's what makes the DR60 so great, and the fact that this is why it's so expensive, because you can't get them apart from being secondhand now. You know, you may be lucky, you may get one in a charity shop, you may get one in a car boot sale, you may pick up one obviously online, but you'll pay money for them, and there's a reason for that. It's not, some people are trying to make money, we get it, but it's because of the uniqueness of what you can do. There are so many very able paranormal investigators, Mikey being one of them, who have spent the money to get these devices because they know that the chances of getting results is so much higher. You don't get something every time. We're not saying that, but see some of those times, those golden nuggets that you can hear really clearly coming through, they will validate that that device works. Whether that's saying Torwood Castle while you're standing in Torwood Castle, or whether it's calling one of our names out, or it mentions a historical figure who is associated with that location you're in, or gives a message over to somebody that's there. Spirit will use whatever Spirit can use, whether it be the DR60, whether it be an ITC app, whether it be a phone application, or whether they will put the volume of the TV up or switch the lights on and off. They will use anything that they could use. Because I've heard things that can't. You probably heard it as well. And I heard Spirit can't use mobile phones and electronic devices. And I'm like, oh, shucks. That's weird, because I've had Spirit turn TVs on and off, turn lights on and off, blow lights, turn the kettle on. I think Spirit could do a lot more than we could understand at this point of view. We don't know what Spirit is capable of doing, or the larger reality can give us as a message through whatever means. Well, synchronicity through to anything.
Yes. And just because we can't do it, you know, telekinetically, doesn't mean that they don't have, I mean, their energy. They're using energy. And according to the Frank's box, right? So it's really interesting to me when somebody is like pounding their fist and you're just, this is bogus information. And, you know, but by the same token, I'm really good at catching conversation just with my regular voice recorder. I get it on my phone. I get it on my Zoom. I get it on my little RCA, my old school recorders. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what tool I'm using. If spirit is there and they want to communicate, they can. The difference is with that device, there is no way that anything else is influencing that. And that's why that is holy grail stuff. I think it's cool. But I just get so excited when they give me a voice anyway. I mean, that makes me fired up. It makes me feel like, okay, they trust me. You know, they're coming and speaking to me. And I was doing something, where was I? May have been a sloth, but it was like, is this thing on? And I'm like, it is on, keep talking, you know, when I heard it, and they had, but, you know, they're trying to reach out to us too, just like we're trying to hear from them. And whatever tool you have that you know works is the best tool.
I'm just going to say to Greg, because Greg says a perfect thing. I'm not going to put the words in his mouth from, but he's got a great saying that he comes out with about, you know, if you're getting ignored, would you communicate? I'll let Greg say it.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm linking it to real life. If you were speaking to somebody and they're just ignoring you, would you continue to waste your time and your energy trying to speak to them? 99% of people would say no. So equally, if you're a spirit trying to communicate to somebody through whatever means you can, and they're ignoring you, would you waste your energy keeping doing it, or would you go to somebody that is open-minded enough to actually listen and accept that there is some form of communication coming through here?
That's a great point. I think
I mean, that the reason we talk about that as well, Kat, is because you've got, it's all about intention, because that's what was in my mind when you were talking there about the intentions of us to listen, the intentions of the spirit to come and speak to us, and they know our intentions. But if your intention is to go into a location, for example, and you say, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to debunk this, but you show me, prove to me that you exist. If you're a spirit and somebody comes in and say, and somebody's been that attitude, that intention of, prove to me then, come on spirit, you show me, come on, bet you can't do it. Any spirit being there, I know if I was a spirit, I'd be like, you're getting nothing. I'm not going to waste my limited energy that I may have here, or how difficult this may be to do this. I'm not going to waste that on you. I'm going to go along there because Kat's along there. We're recording, speaking nice and asking me nice questions. I'll go and leave a message with Kat, but I'm not leaving it with that guy there, because that guy's trying to goad me into talking or trying to provoke me in some way, or plainly just doesn't believe I even exist. So what's the point? They will not listen. Even if I give them an answer, they'll say that it was a stray radio wave. Even if I give them an answer, they're going to say that, you know, it was the sound of somebody outside. It wasn't me that was tapping on the door. I just think that's what it is. And I think what Greg says is perfect there, because would you waste your energy? And it could be limited amounts of energy to communicate with this reality from wherever they are based.
Well, I think that's brilliant too. I agree. But I'm the person that's going to sit there and say, oh, come on. You know, you want to talk to me. And that's not always the case, but I still try. So Greg, what is probably your favorite piece of evidence that you've caught in EVP?
Oh, that's a really difficult one to answer. We actually caught I think for me, the very best one was at the Driel Halls in Anstruther, which we know was it's an ancient tower connected to a church. And we know that it was used to imprison women during the historic witch trials back in the 16th and 17th century. And we were picking up, we felt we had a woman there that she was scared, she was cowering in a jail cell, and a much more dominant male figure on the stairs. And we were doing a session, it was actually with the cultist box out in the stairs. And I did something that I don't know why I did it. There was a handrail going up the tower, but it's something they put in recently. It's actually an electrical one. It's lights all the way up. So as you're going up, you can put your hand on it and use it as a handrail, but it's illuminated. So I knew there was a current running up and down here because we weren't getting much through on the cultist box. You know, we're in the middle of an ancient stone-built tower. And I thought, I wonder, this runs all the way up to the top. So just letting the aerial over onto it, and I asked the question, could you tell us what you did to her? And this really strong response, killed her, comes through. And we've actually listened back. It actually said killed her very quietly, and then almost shouts killed her straight to us. So, and to say this was this male, he was on the stairs. The second you give it just that wee bit extra energy of going into the electrical light system, you get this really strong killed her. And for me, that's still, it fitted everything. It fitted the environment, it fitted the story, you know, what we were experiencing, what we felt ourselves with this dominant male who's we suspect was a jailer, and this female who was potentially an accused witch. But that for me is still the standout.
That's intense. I mean,
we obviously have
really
the one as well
because...
that we use. We use the one a lot that it was actually Rick when he asked at Balgony Castle, is there anything we should be afraid of here? And it was in the Frank's box very powerfully, the energy.
Yeah. And that was so clear. And I actually used that to close his video with, because getting that response was, I think it responded to Rick that strongly because he is that strong in his investigations. And I thought that was my favorite piece of evidence that he's shown me. And the fact that he was with y'all made it his favorite piece of evidence, right? I mean, he loves investigating with y'all. I do too. But you're very good and you're very technically savvy. And I'm good with video and photography. But what y'all do and that particular device, I thought was so cool. But I just love working with y'all. That's just that. But have you gotten anything else that was quite as strong as that, the energy? Because that was a clear answer about, oh dear, what you should be worried about. But have you gotten any other warnings or anything of that nature?
It's not so much warnings. I'll let Ryan talk about it because it was in one of his sessions again at Balgony, but we got a really, really strong, powerful name during one of the sessions that, again, because Kelly, the lady of Balgony, she was there, so she was able to immediately confirm historically.
So this is
correct.
Recent.
And it was a few years ago, a couple of years ago, and then we got the second part, but I'll let Ryan explain it because it was his session. He knows it better than I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the Laird's Hall at the top of the tower, or near the top of the tower, and I think it had about 10 members of the public there, and there was myself and Kelly was there, Lady Balgony, and we were using the France box and asking questions out, and then all of a sudden we hear Sibbald, which is the family clan that first had the tower. And we all heard it and we went, Sibbald. And I said, okay then, what's your first name? And it said, John. Now, Sir John Sibbald was the first laird, one of the very first lairds in that tower. And we were like,
oh my gosh.
I mean, that was just so good. That was so good. But the conversation from there went really, it was positive. It was really, really positive and really crazy. We usually say we come in complete and utter respect for what we're doing in this communication here. Quite the opposite of trying to provoke or anything. We're here, we're coming complete and utter respect. And we said that. And the reply back from the France box was, bless you, we do it back.
Oh, man.
When I heard that, when I was analysing, it actually touched me a bit. I was like, oh my goodness, that is unreal. That is absolutely unreal. Just to add to it as well was, at the time, we changed the batteries in it. The France box takes about 8 of these AA batteries inside it. It's really power hungry. And Jonathan was there. And Jonathan says, I'll change the batteries. And when he went and put the batteries inside, he put one of them back to front the wrong way. But the box was working. But when we were sitting doing our session, we were saying, it sounded a little bit off. And I'm saying, Jonathan, that doesn't sound, you can hear it in the audio, that doesn't sound right. Something not. So Jonathan asks, Spirit, is that you? Are you doing something to the box? And the reply that come back was, no, you did it. Right. So
no way.
Yeah, honestly, and I'm like, so when I'm analysing the audio, I hear this, and I'm like, that's crazy. And then I remember, oh yeah, the box didn't sound right. So I open up the battery compartment. This is how I discovered. I took them out and I looked, and I seen the battery back to front. One of them the wrong way around on the polarity. And I'm saying, that shouldn't work. It shouldn't even work.
It should not be running
And I
at
said,
all.
but even more than that, the voice, the voice said, no, you did it. They were telling Jonathan, you did it. You put the batteries, we've seen you do it. You've done it wrong. It's not us. You did it.
Yeah.
Is that not good evidence? What else could we get?
That's astounding.
It was just unreal.
I'm sorry. That is astounding. Well, you know, I'm going to bring up Balgoni since you brought it up first. But when we were there last year, all of the people that were in there with us, because people have heard me talk about what happened, you know, and when I looked at the video did not portray what was happening with the REM pod the way I was seeing it. And I thought that was weird because where we were was in the museum that had a lot of personal effects of the previous Laird and Stewart working together when Stewart was a child, and then the Laird's workshop was right behind the door, blah, blah, blah. But that was probably the strongest response. Is this true? It is true. It is the strongest response I've ever seen happen. And that was when, you know, we're doing a session with the very first group and you can feel the energy build up. And then all the K2s in there are going off. And then I'm looking at the REM pod. Mikey had his REM pod set over there on the display table. And it looks like a Jacob's ladder, right? With the up and down and the colors. And I'm just like, is this about to blow up? Because it looked like it was in distress, right? And I'm still looking at it and I'm filming it, but it does not, you can't see the effect. And so, and Mikey's didn't either. So, but he's seeing it because Rick is like, well, something is happening here, you know, being Rick. And Mikey says, bro, my REM pod don't do that. And so all of the people with us, because Gregor, you had a password. And I still don't know if when people reviewed their evidence, they heard one. But Rick's like, you know, when the K2s are going, and Rick's like, well, obviously this is someone who's familiar with paranormal equipment. You think? And he's doing this and it's taking him forever. And I don't know if you've seen video from that, but it was just like, who could this be? You know, and it was so obviously the Laird, because who else would it have been? You know, and
yeah, I mean, when on that occasion, we actually chose that we'd never investigated the museum area ourselves very much, but we know it's built on top of one of the former defensive towers for the castle. So we kind of more anticipated that there was something along these lines that you'd potentially pick up there. But it certainly seems like the Raymond, the former Laird, came through. Now, Raymond's workshop was directly behind the room that you were working in. And as you say, it contains lots of artifacts, both from the castle itself, plus items that Raymond and Stewart, his son, worked on over their time at the castle, the models of the castle and things like that are all, you know, handmade by Stewart and Raymond over the time. So in hindsight, it's not a massive surprise to us that he chose that place to come through, because it's where he spent a lot of his life. He'd get up. He didn't work to normal expectations. He would sleep late, he'd go to bed late, he'd work till sort of 2-3 in the morning, then go to his bed, and maybe wouldn't get up till 10-11 o'clock the next day. He didn't do 9 to 5s. He was very much worked late into the night, and that's where he did it. He worked in that workshop, creating all this very personal craft. It's all built and designed by hand. So it's all got his energy. But what I would say is that since then, we've definitely had him through a lot. And one thing that people maybe don't realise about Raymond was when we first started investigating at Balgony, Raymond used to join us. He was fascinated by what was happening. He really wanted to understand. He'd experienced, both him and Margaret, his wife, had experienced quite a lot of the spirits of that castle. And he really wanted to understand what was going on. He never considered himself owner of the castle. He always said he was just custodian. The castle was there long before him, and it'll be there long after him. He's just got this period of time where he's responsible for the upkeep of it. So he used to always join us on investigations. So he was very, very familiar with what we did, how we did it, what equipment we used, etc. It was actually at the stage that it was quite a difficult thing to approach. We had to ask him, would he mind not joining us on an investigation? Because what we actually found was it was almost like, because he's layered, he's the head of the castle, if you like. When he was there, we weren't getting as much spirit activity. It was almost like they respected his position within the castle as well. And when he didn't join us, we got a lot more activity. So when we asked him, look,
that's interesting.
We can't tell you what to do, but would you mind? It was more initially as an experiment. Would you mind just leaving us for half an hour? And we'll see what happens. As it happened, we always got. So he actually stopped joining us because he felt he was interfering with what we were getting. So he wouldn't join us, but then we'd sit with him for an hour or so at the end of the investigation and just run through everything that had happened with him. And it was brilliant because a lot of times we could say, well, we got this name in this play, in this room, and he could instantly just click and say, oh, that was so-and-so, the 5th laird of Balgony who lived in this time period. And it was brilliant because you just got these immediate answers from him.
I wish that I had been able to actually meet him when he was still living, because I feel like
an amazing man.
He must have been brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for him and Stewart as well, I mean, you can't take away how much work Stewart's done at that castle as well. But if it wasn't for them, particular, it takes a special type of person to take on a building like that. And a lot of the work there they did personally. And if they hadn't stepped in, we probably would have lost that castle. It probably would have just fallen completely into ruin. So they have, through their dedication and hard work, have saved that.
Well, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And I think that first time I came in and we met, and you were telling me about the doors that he had carved and all the art that he had done, the crests and stuff on the ceilings. And I just thought he was amazing. And I understand why I couldn't that first trip, but I would so have enjoyed just hearing him laugh and seeing him, cut up with y'all and Rick. And because Rick absolutely had a lot of love and respect for him. And that was kind of an interesting connection that they had. So I think that I was so blessed to be able to be there. And, the experience that I was talking about We had 4 groups come through that night. Nothing happened, really, after that first one. And I found that interesting too. Because if it was a glitch in electrical, or if it was a, whatever, it would have continued. But it was, I'm goosebumpy, but it was the Laird saying hello and goodbye to Rick, I'm convinced. So it was something else.
I mean, it's one of the things that we always say when we're doing a public event that, we'll, as you know, we'll bring up to 30 members of the public to a location. We split them into 3 or 4 separate groups, so there's never more than 10. Try to stick it to about 7 people in a group. So it's a comfortable group for us to work with, plus they get a better experience. It's a more intimate experience for them as well. But we always say that we don't consider Spirit to be performing monkeys for our entertainment.
Yeah.
We will have times when nothing will happen. We can't control that. We're not going to fake something or make something happen. We have the tried and tested methods and equipment that we have, which we will do everything we possibly can to try to encourage interaction. But we can't guarantee it. So, as you say, that first group managed to experience loads. The other groups didn't, but they managed to hear what the first group experienced as well. And I think this is where, Ryan might want to talk more about the television work as well, where, it's difficult for people that they've only seen paranormal investigations on the telly. And they don't quite grasp the fact that what you're seeing is 3 days worth of investigating cropped into 40 minutes. It's not a case you go into a place and you start getting things thrown at you and things shouted at you. You could be sitting there for hours and hours and hours and hours, but nobody wants to sit and watch that.
We have all done that.
This is just this perception. Exactly. I love doing it, but it's not good TV.
Well, it doesn't make good television 3 days later when you've got like 20 minutes worth of stuff. Yeah. I understand.
I mean, this is one of the things that I picked up on. I mean, my main thing is paranormal investigation and research. This is what I've done for 21 years now, right? It's not TV or anything like that. That's just a circumstance that's come from the work that I've put in to do the bread and butter stuff that I do all the time and my deep interest and my search. But what I noticed when, certainly with the spook stuff, Spook Scotland, Spooked Island, which is Haunted Scotland, Haunted Island in America, I noticed a few strange comments that were put up from other paranormal investigators, and it was along the lines of, I take it all you need is a TV camera crew and you get everything happening because they get everything in an hour. And it made me laugh. I thought it was really hilarious because I was like, 3 days. And what they've done is, like you do with a football match or something across the American football, is they've taken the whole lot and they've taken the highlights and they've squeezed it together. They've also added in interviews, history, scenic shots, probably talking to us to get our opinions. And then when you take all that away, you're left with probably what you get over 3 days of an investigation. It's a small part that's interesting, which may be voices captured. It may be the medium, whoever that be, whether it be Chris Fleming or anyone for that matter, who's picked up a few key points that actually fits the story from the place. It could be we've heard noises coming, knocks or a door or whatever it is the highlights squeezed between adverts on a TV show. That also what you've got to understand as well, which and I wouldn't like to be them on this level because there's so many hundreds of hours worth of footage from different cameras and DVR systems and that, but you've got a production crew who are not paranormal investigators, who are very skilled and do what I probably couldn't do in their area, but they've taken that footage and they've brought it down to this single story that they wish to cover. There may be 12 stories in that place, but they've taken one story and they've seen what they've got to fit that narrative, and they've put that together for the people to enjoy, to say, this is the story of this place, this is what the mystery is, this is what the team, whoever it be, has got from that. And it's went out over 45 minutes, 50-minute show, adverts included, for then a paranormal investigator, whoever they may be, to turn around and say, oh, they get everything happening in that show, you should go in there. It's 3 days worth. If you go spend 3 days, you probably get the exact same. You might not get the great camera shots because you don't have all the cameras that this production company has, and neither do we. We've got good stuff, but not that good. That's all it is. They've presented it that way. Now, we present our stuff. We try really hard because we also understand, Kat, that if we put our raw content out, the public, probably outside us and investigators, will not watch it. Because we live in a time, the TikTok rage and everything's to be fast and reels and shorts and what have you, that people's attention spans are not willing to sit for that long. They just want, show me what you got. Okay, that's great. Move on to the next one. That's what they've got. For us, we like to do long form. We want to show you the history, the mystery, the research, what we found. We get excited. We nerd out on, we've got this name and it's in the family tree and it's here. And we want to show that. And that's why we put a presentation together. It's the same with live streams. We don't do a live stream. We've heard it actually said that people do live streams to get stars sent to them. And I'm like, if you knew how much money we've spent even to give you the live stream, never mind the equipment and the fuel costs and everything else that goes into it, and HQ and electric bills and rent and DGI systems that we're on and standing. We appreciate it, don't get me wrong. People saying stars, it's fantastic, but for people to say that we do it for stars, we don't even cover going to the location to do the live stream. The reason we do the lives, the point I'm making is, if we do a DR60 session and we do a Franchbox session live, and we get Togwood Castle captured live, and then we edit and put out a presentation, it's a guarantee someone somewhere will say, you edited that to make that sound like that. We go look at the live. We done it authentic on the live because we are really serious about integrity of our research, and we want to show you where that come from. Now you can see us. We've cleaned it, we took some hiss away, made it so you can hear it better. We put words on the screen, because that's another one. You shouldn't put words on the screen, because if you're an investigator, you're making people. Well, the words are not on the screen for me when I analyse. This is what I've found, and I'm making it easy so that somebody doesn't have to go, I don't really hear that. And the reason I don't hear it is because they could be American listening to a Scottish voice. They could be English listening to a Scottish voice. I'm trying to help, not trying to convince. This is what we've got.
Well, I'm going to speak as an American that I appreciate, because I have a hard time sometimes understanding. Yeah. And, you get picked on a lot about that. But it's not you. It's just the different dialect and what we're accustomed to hearing.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's not a bad thing to have subtitles.
I think it's good. I think it's amazing. I'll tell you why. And I had this on Spook Scotland, I think, and Spook Island, actually, and on Spook Island. Chris is from America. Okay, so he's from Chicago. Okay. We are dealing with captures in Scotland and captures in Ireland. Now, I said to Chris, because Chris would sometimes hear some of the captures coming in Spook Scotland. I remember it. And he'd say, I think I can hear this. And I'm listening from a Scottish ear. And I said, Chris, I think it actually says this, and I'll tell you why. It's local dialect. It's from this area. And this is how they speak. And then I give an example. Oh, yeah, you're right. I hear that. I had to do the same when I went to Ireland. I couldn't go to Ireland, to Let Castle, and try and listen in the same dialect that I'm used to in Fife, here in Fife, Scotland, on the east coast of Scotland, because they speak Irish and they sing. This is the way they talk, and I'm trying to listen for that, because if I try and listen to this kind of voice, I'm not going to hear it, because they sing differently with the dialect in Ireland, you know, and it's kind of like a. That's why I say that to Rick a lot, and I sing this to him, and we laugh about it. And it's because there's different ways to listen. And myself and Chris Fleming done that across in Ireland. And then you start hearing it. It's like, yeah, we can hear what they're trying to say. Because once you take yourself out of the equation and listen to what you're supposed to be trying to actually uncover, you could understand it a little bit more. But more so, if the production company or us are trying to put that out, put the words on the screen and give the viewer the chance to read the word, listen to it, and then try and just alter their perception a little bit. And then they may just get that point and go, wow, I couldn't hear it without the words because I'm listening with my Chicago, Australian, wherever, ear. Mm-hmm. But because I put the words up, I'm going to try and listen to that, how they speak there, and see if maybe Spirit are saying it slightly different. 9 times out of 10, they can then hear it. That helps. It's not to hinder. It's not to trick. It's not to be a charlatan and make everything about us or whoever's doing it. Is to help the viewer hear it so that they can take something from that and understand and be educated slightly on how to do this. That's why it's done. Well, but I always come back to the same point, Pat. The same point all the and the same point I come back to every single time, because when I hear because the words are on the screen, then you know what it's saying. I didn't get the words on the screen when I analysed it. I had to sit and play that recording 50 times and listen and listen and listen. And then eventually, sometimes I get binged, but eventually getting it and saying, wow, that's a female that says put it down, which was one of the latest ones we got, which was amazing. Put it down. I've got it now. It took me a few tries to get that, because the monkey mind jumps in and tries to make things. And I'm like, shh, I need to just listen to what's getting said here. And it was put it down. And then I put the words on the screen, and I seen a comment. And the comment was, well, I'm a paranormal investigator, and as a paranormal investigator, I wouldn't tell people what the words were. I would just let them try and figure it out. That's fine. That's fine if we're all sitting researching and collaborating together. That's fine. But the person scrolling down Facebook who just wants to hear what it is doesn't have time to do that. And they don't have access to us on that level either. So it's better just to give them, and then make your mind up. They may turn around and say it's junk. That's fine. We don't take any offense to that. Or they may say, wow, that is really something that's opened my eyes, and now I want to go and explore and try that.
Sure. Well, I mean, nobody wants to be sitting there going, oh my gosh, I think this might say that, but could be this. I mean, because when I'm reviewing my own evidence, I am, especially from there, okay? But I am often just kind of like, it sure did sound like a voice, but what the world did that say? And I am not Rick, so I will not say speak English, damn it. But it's just the dialects are so different. And even through Scotland, the dialects change so much. If I'm talking to somebody in Edinburgh, then I'm in Fife, and then Glasgow. I mean, that was an interesting dialect. And it's just like we have a lot of people think I talk funny, especially the New Yorkers and the LA people, right? And a lot of people think I'm dumb because I sound like this, which is really great, because let them, But it's just so interesting when you have something to help, because I don't have a problem with that. I've been doing this since God was a child, and it is so helpful to have, and it really is almost an interpreter. It's not putting words in your head. It's just, this is something I'm not used to listening to. I'm going to need a little help with this. There's nothing wrong with that. I get frustrated when people do that to you. I think it's rude.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's I think people just need to come together and try and find a way to get the answers out there and collaborate. I've got this thing that I say, and Greg will tell you as well. It's not about being in competition. It's about being in a spirit of harmony and collaborating together. And that's the way that we work. That's the whole integrity we've got as Scottish Paranormal, is that we will work with absolutely anyone who's wanting to do it in a spirit of harmony. If they're willing to do it for the greater good to move forward, competition's no good to us. We don't care who has this location, who's this big team, small team, whatever. These are terms that we don't use. These are terms that we've heard. We hear it from other countries. I speak to a lot of people in America. It's the same issue. I speak to people in England. It's the same issue. Europe, I've not heard as much of it happening. But we always say in a spirit of harmony, we will work with others for the greater good, and we'll bring everybody's got a gift in some way. Some it's audio, some it's speaking to spirit, some it's just so many people have got different gifts and they can bring something to the table. Greg's always keen on saying that even newbies, even people who just come in usually have the best questions, and we think, we never thought of that. We never thought of that. That is so great that what you're saying, and you're new to this because we're all not new to life. And we're not new to the bigger picture. It's just we're trying to understand this part of it. And even the newest people who come into this have got some of the greatest things to ask or to suggest, and things that we just maybe have overlooked, trying to find answers. But we say that all the time. I think it's unfortunate. You will get some people who may see people putting good captures out. It could be us, could be others. And then you'll always get this one or two people who term themselves to be seasoned investigators. They've been doing it for 20 year, 30 year, 40 year, 50 year, a badge of honor. All I give to that is your dedication is amazing, but you're just on the same level. Somebody just entering the field as well. We're all in it together. We're all seeking. So just because maybe you've been doing it for 30 years, or me, use me as an example, I've been doing this for 21 years. That doesn't make my opinion any more special to somebody else's evidence. I can give my opinion, but I would never play it down. I would never ever say you're wrong. I've been to that location and nothing happened to me, so it's not haunted, or any of these kind of things that I see written on many different public forums. I think that, you know, the intention of the investigator going in, the absolute dedication they've got to gathering evidence on that location, how good they do the work when they go in there, how respectful they are to spirit, to communicate with them, all takes a part. If you're just going to go in there with your camera and you're going to be a debunker and going to say, come on then, spirit, prove it to me. I've been doing this for 20 years. And if you can't prove it to me, this place is not haunted, and then come out and say, see, told you, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And it puts people off.
Sometimes you get a show. Because if you go into certain locations with that attitude, you're going to get shown.
Some places you will get
educated. You will be educated. It's crazy. I don't understand. You're interacting with something you can't see unless they choose to let you. You can't affect at all. And something that I have seen be able to move objects. And you're going to be rude and obnoxious and tick it off. Sounds like a good idea to no one. I mean, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's we don't know what we're dealing with a lot of the times, and you've got to be really careful with that, because like you say, we can't a lot of times see. Sometimes we can't hear what we're dealing with, and there's been many stories of items flying around the place, people being followed home, and things happen in their home. Very bad luck afterwards. And so, do you really want to be disrespectful for something like that? No, I for me personally, I think just keep it positive, keep the integrity. Be respectful to what you can't see, what you're trying to communicate with, and then even keep it respectful to the people who are in the paranormal field doing it, whatever level they're at. You know, whether they've been here and doing it for many years or whether they're just starting out in their journey. You know, encourage, be friendly, offer the hand of friendship and help where you can. Work and collaborate online or offline, and really just show humanity a little bit with each other moving forward. Don't diss other teams. Don't talk bad about others, even if you don't agree with what they're doing. Just keep that out of the way. It doesn't work, and it actually puts you in a bad light. You know, doing things like that. I know I'm not going to work with anyone who talks bad about others.
And people seem to not get that. I mean, here we've got. I mean, you can't swing a cat and not hit a paranormal team, basically, especially in some areas. But there's always drama. I mean, we call it paradrama. And it's the biggest bunch of hooey. We're all working towards the same goal. And I don't understand why we have to keep one-upping people. You know, the spirits are going to interact where they want to. They're not a dog and pony show. And you can't judge someone if there's someplace where you got activity the last time and now it's dead, as it were. I don't understand why we can't just work as a community more. And are your subscribers there?
Not yet. They'll be coming soon, but not yet.
Okay, because I wanted to go ahead and get some more questions in. Are you good with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got started a little bit late, and I just love having an opportunity to talk to both of you because I don't get to very much. So, but am I going to get to go to Balgony in September? Maybe.
If we can arrange it, yeah, we'll do everything we can. It just depends on the dates, because I've said we've got the public investigation at Stirling on the Saturday night, so that's kind of eats up the whole weekend. So if we can get one of the dates before then sorted out, we will do everything within our power to get you there.
Okay. Well, do you have our St. Andrews dates, or do you want me to send them to you?
I think Rick sent me the St. Andrews dates.
Okay.
But I don't know when you're in Edinburgh.
We're in Edinburgh. Oh dear. 2 days before we go to St. Andrews, which would be flying in. I believe flying in the 25th, which will be actually the 26th there when we get there, the morning of, and then we go to St. Andrews the 27th. We're supposed to have 2 nights in Edinburgh. We may not have planned that well, but I'll look and make sure. Because
we'll certainly do everything we can.
Yeah, well, as long as I get to see you. I mean, investigating is great. Friends are greater. So come and break bread somewhere or something. But is Torwood open again?
Yeah, Torwood's open. It's never not been open, I don't think. It's not the easiest castle to get to, but you know, John and Tracy do a lot of work there. That's the Stewart, who's one of our premium members. So yeah, it's definitely visitable.
Well, I didn't know if didn't it close at some point, or did it just close to investigations?
No, it's never been closed.
Okay. I must have misread whatever I saw. It's been a while. But I know that I saw something online about an investigation that was happening, and I was like, they're doing investigations again. So if they didn't stop, obviously they're doing them. So
yep.
Every so often I miss the boat. It's okay. But where all do you do your tours, Greg?
I only really do a tour of St Andrews. We have talked about, and there's a number of different things we're working on collectively to bring tours to other towns and cities. Plus, we're actually looking at for next year doing a coach tour around Scotland, but not to the tourist hotspots, if you like. We'll take people to the likes of the north and up the Highlands, across the Highlands, ideally. So, different places from the normal ones.
The hidden places.
Yeah. The hidden hauntings of Scotland.
Yes. Well, you know that Rick is so not wanting to go anywhere he's not been. And so I drive him insane. Rick, for those that don't know, Rick McCollum, he is the founder of Hollywood Ghost Hunters, my best friend, my investigation partner with Lori and Mikey. But I was just like, let's go to Aberdeen. And he was like, Aberdeen? And we talked about that being such a rough trip before. And he was like, no. I was like, well, it's that or the Orkney Islands. And he was like, where is that? So, now I'm pushing for Skye because there's a day tour you can get from Inverness to Skye. And he's like, why? I'm like, well, we haven't seen it. So I am always excited about your country because I haven't seen one part of it that's not absolutely breathtaking. And
well, I mean,
Skye,
Skye is just worth seeing just for the sake of it being Skye. It's a beautiful island and it's deep history, very haunted, deep folklore with the Fairy Glen and the Fairy Bridge and all the rest of it. And of course, you pass Elandon Castle to get there, the most iconic castle in Scotland.
How cool is that? There's so much to see there. This will be my third trip, and it won't be my last. I know that because there's something about the beauty of Scotland, and whether it's because you have Edinburgh, which is magnificent with all these different places, and you can see it because they don't allow skyscrapers to destroy the skyline. And y'all probably don't think anything about this, but the little the chimney pots, right, on top of from the individual units in the buildings. When I first saw that, it blew me away. I had no idea that was a thing. And when you're in Greyfriars Kirk, you're looking at the city, and each one of those represents a home. And you live in one of the most beautiful places, and your area is one of the most beautiful parts of it. So Fife is spectacular. So last year when we were tooling up and down the roads to Balgony, it was just so cool to see everything there.
We are extremely lucky. We're extremely lucky with Scotland. We're extremely lucky with what we do, with the history and the mystery of Scotland, with the age and the stories that we have. And Greg will tell you, we are the exact same. There's areas in Scotland that we've not even been yet, because it's so vast, the amount of places we can go.
Yes.
But I tell you what, we will be there over the next year or two, because we're going to cover the whole of Scotland, and we're going to put that out there and show people exactly what's there, what the stories are in these areas, and we've got big plans for that. But some of those plans, like Greg says, will include taking people on a tour, and we'll spend time with them, and we'll do it together as a journey, and we'll go around and we'll start digging into these areas together. So whether we be investigating, whether we be climbing through the most darkest, coldest, dampest castles, or whether we be sitting around a nice open fire telling ghost stories and having something to eat, this is something that we're looking to do, and we've got some great ideas of where to go with these. It'll be fun. It's a journey. And for us as well, it's a journey, and we can't wait.
Where do you want to investigate that you haven't been yet, individually? He's going first.
Ryan's nominated me to go first. I always say Skinwalker Ranch. I have been fascinated with that place since I was probably 10 years old. That's when I first started reading about Skinwalker Ranch. And
Me too.
it just fascinates me that it's so much happening there. You know, every single aspect of the paranormal is thrown into there. You know, the myths, the legends, the hauntings, UFOs, folklore. You know, there's everything there. And I think that would be an absolutely amazing place to actually spend some time investigating that.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that, guys. What about you?
I'm actually going to say Edinburgh Castle, purely because if I got Edinburgh Castle, then I've covered the main place in Scotland that I always wanted to do. It's the only one now that's left in Scotland that I'm like, please let me in. So if Historic Scotland want to let me into there, that would be fantastic. I could go and visit, obviously, and I could walk around, and I could get my wee sneaky DR60 out and probably ask some questions if it was quiet enough. But if I could just get even just 2-3 hours inside there, even if it's just one area to set up, and try and find out if there's some validity to some of the stories that are in there, and speak to the spirit that's there, give them a voice for once, rather than all these tourists coming through and everything else that's happening. Let me get in there and get their opinions. That would be fantastic. And like I say, it would probably just underline Scotland and all these places when I was younger that I read about, that I said I would love to go and look at. That would probably just finish it off for me. And then we'd just have to look at the world, wouldn't we? We'd just have to look at somewhere else to go in the world. But that would probably be the one I think I would like to tick off.
What part of the castle would be your favorite if you could only pick one part?
I don't know. I would really have to go and walk around first, and then I would get a sense. I think that it's like anywhere I go to. I could go around a place, and there is usually one place I'm like, yeah, I need to do something here. That would probably be the same for going around the castle. I don't have one part in my mind. I would just like to get in and do any part at this point. But if I could walk around and get a sense of the place, and this takes you back, even though a lot of people think, yeah, I just do like techie stuff and that, I do tend to go with my gut and just try and feel it out a bit, and you'll get a sense of what feels right and what doesn't.
What about you, Greg? If you had any place there, any town, any place, where would you go?
I going specifically to Edinburgh Castle. I'd like to go to the underground areas. There's a tower below the castle itself. My father, who sadly just passed away at the start of this year, he was military, and Edinburgh Castle's I think it still is, but it's for a long time still been a working military base, as well as a tourist attraction. And my father didn't talk about the paranormal. He never discouraged me. He was quite open for me to, explore the paranormal. But he didn't talk about himself. He was, let's say, this proud military man. But every now and again, as you got older, he'd start talking about Edinburgh Castle. And he started saying things like when I was stationed at Edinburgh Castle, and that night we heard the piper, and I go, no, forget it. They change the subject. I know he's experienced the piper, he experienced phantom dogs and things like that when he was stationed there. But he only ever let tiny little snippets out, and he wouldn't openly discuss it. So I'd like to actually go there and try to experience some of what he experienced. I say particularly this area underneath the castle. I'd really like to go underneath the castle, because that's not where people go. It's not where the tourists get taken. It's closed off most of the times, and it's probably one of the oldest parts of the castle. It's where, I don't know. I just feel that would be the place to go.
Well, would it be under the jail part? Is it
I can't remember exactly where.
It.
I've seen a map, but I can't remember exactly where it is within the castle. But I mean, it was only kind of more recently reopened, and or at least acknowledged as being opened, and it's an area I'd love to properly, because there's so little information actually available about it, because it's not open to visit. I'd like to go and just explore it and see what's there, feel the energy down there, and certainly do a wee bit of investigating while there as well.
That would be so amazing, right? I think that probably one of the reasons that would be the best place for both of you is because you both live with a love for history. It's not just ghost hunting. It's not just, however people want to look at that. But you really are solving history's mysteries, or trying to. I think you're doing a pretty good job. And I would love to go to Edinburgh Castle with y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it for a long time, and I know Ryan's of the same thoughts, that the amount of people that will come to us and tell us, oh, so-and-so's haunted, this castle's haunted by so-and-so, and they say, why? They don't know. They just heard the story. They've not asked the question. As I said earlier, people go into graveyards and things like that, thinking it's haunted because there's dead people there. There has to be a reason why this place is haunted. So for me, that's a key part of the history. Go back in history, find out what happened, who did it happen to, why did it happen, and that then who potentially haunts it, why are they there, what do they want, what's the reason, the background, something has to have happened. A lot of time when you dig really into the history books to find the reasons, it's actually a better story than the ones people tell you, because the historical fact's much more interesting.
That's why you make St. Andrews come alive for me. So I think that's one of my favorite places, even though it was hotter than Blue Blazes. That was one of my very favorite afternoons that we had the whole trip. And we were there for a while. But I love your enthusiasm for St. Andrews, because it's home in large part to you. But your love for sharing that, both of you, your whole team. That's why I love your subscribers. Like when we got to be with everybody for the cookout and stuff, it's so special to be included with people that have such a enthusiasm for not just their home, but for the understories of their home. There's so much that if you start looking, people think that America's young. You know, we're a very young country, but we're not a very young land. And there have always been people who lived here. So people don't really understand that, like when I go with my husband to North Carolina, he plays in poker tournaments and I go play outside, that my ancestors walked there. And so I get that. But when I'm in Scotland, I have people that were there too. And it's really cool. I finally found one of my family names in a cemetery, but in Inverness. And it was my grandmother's maiden name. And I was just like, oh my gosh, look. And it was funny because there had been a bird massacre right in front of that. And that's what caught my eye, because I was like, oh, well, there's no body, that poor bird, right? And I turned around. It was a pretty little red monument. Well, it wasn't little, it's big. And it had her name. And I was like, well, thank you. I needed something to make me stop and read this monument, right? So I think it's so much fun. And I'm so looking forward to being there again. And I love that your history is the mystery thing spoke to me. And now I go and wander through everything I can find. And when I can find records to wander through, I do that too. So y'all have really affected my experience of Scotland and of my home. And I appreciate that. So I also appreciate you being here, because I know you've got a big event coming up tonight. So I just...
Yeah, we have our premium members coming in tonight. Well, we started it a number of years ago because people get fed up with me saying it, but I've always said that, you know, if you're interested in arts, you go to the art club. If you're interested in archery, you go to the archery. If you're interested in running, you go to the running club. But if you're interested in the paranormal, where'd you go? So, you know, this is why we started this, because it's... Well, exactly. That's why we started it, so that people, like-minded people, could come together in a safe environment and talk with other people about their beliefs, you know, their experiences, etc., without the risk of being ridiculed. Because we're all open-minded. We all have experiences. We all have thoughts. We all have beliefs, and we respect everyone that comes here. They may have different beliefs and experiences, but it's all about just accepting and respecting it, because none of us know the answers yet. So let's just listen to everybody.
That's why we do it, right? Seekers. We're all seekers. So thank you, guys. Y'all have just been so fantastic, and I appreciate you. I hope you have all the fun tonight. So, and I hope that I get to see some of Yes. But just tell the ones that know me I said hi, and I wish I was there. And thank you for including, all of us. I'm going to speak for all of us, but thank you for including us with your groups, because I have the best time with y'all, and I have such a love for Balgony, and I have so much respect for y'all and the work that you do. Thanks for bringing such a good reputation.
We respect you guys as well. We take the attitude that if you're going to travel all the way across to Scotland, the least we can do is showcase as much as we possibly can with you. There's a definite click there.
We'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely click there. We obviously work well together. We're similar minds, and it's just great sharing experiences and thoughts.
I think so too. And like I said, if you're ever here, we'll make that so too. Although it may take me a minute to get to you if you're here, depending on where you are. So I need notice. But I'm way down south. But if you come to the United States, I will come find you. So, but as it is right now, I'm happy to come to Scotland. So thank you again, guys. So
thank you.
Yeah. I'm just thrilled. And, you know, I just want to let people know as you're watching this, that you're the reason that all of us do this work. You know, whether it's investigation, the research side of investigation, the shows, or the television shows, is to open up your minds to what can be with the paranormal, what is, and to give you maybe information to be able to go explore for yourself, because it's really, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to experience. And these guys are out doing the work all the time. And Ryan will be in your living room, and Gregor too, on occasion. And, you know, you couldn't ask for better company. So thanks again for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Same cat time, same cat channel.
Thank you for having us.
Good night. Thank you.